Our next speaker is a young and brilliant surgeon, Dr. Deepthi Meda, who after a very accomplished educational career, she is heading the Department of Cornea and Refractive Surgery at Karthik Netralaya, Bangalore. And she has a brilliant learning pearl for us today to share. Dr. Deepthi, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm just
Yeah.
sharing. So I thank ARC, Chitra ma'am, Dr. Harshil sir for this lovely opportunity. So today I'll just share a bunch of these three advanced cataracts and how we managed it using a technique of phacosection. So when we need to manage mature or advanced hard cataracts like these, we either can opt for a conventional SICS with a tunnel of 7 to 10 millimeters or can mechanically emulsify the nucleus by phacoemulsification through a smaller tunnel. But today what we perform in these cases is the technique of phacosection, which is a good balance of both the techniques. It has the small incision and lower SIA advantage of the phacoemulsification and a manual machine-free phaco-energy-free advantage of the conventional SICS. So this is the 5.5 to 6 mm incision in a typical phaco section. So obviously to remove any nucleus through this incision we need to fragment it. So today in this video I would like to demonstrate different ways of performing the fragmentation in an advanced cataract. So let's speed up the tunnel making and rhexis. A bimanual prolapse of the nucleus exerts the least stress on the zonules, which could be already compromised in advanced cataracts. In the first method, we use an in-house made 26 gauge cannula. This is a diagrammatic representation of the cannula continuously injecting visco as it splits the nucleus, which is firmly supported by the wire vectors. The same technique in action here. So in this slow-mo video, the bleed actually allows us to visualize the outflow of viscoelastic that is continuously bathing the anterior chamber. In the next case, as the nucleus was a little harder, a 26 gauge cystitome is the same used for rhexis is used here. A few strokes are enough to split the hard core of any nuclei. Again, as we see in this recap, the air bubbles demonstrate how the cystitome is continuously injecting visco to coat the endothelium and also to maintain a safe space in between the nucleus and the endothelium. So in the third case, we use a snare. Snares are commercially available or can easily be made in-house by simple instrumentation. So first, the anterior chamber is deepened with a dispersive viscoelastic. The snare is horizontally inserted and slowly made vertical, thereby belting the nucleus. The snare is then firmly yet slowly pulled to split even the hardest of cataracts with quite an ease. So coming to the live video here. Ensure that each movement is very gentle and extremely conscious to avoid touching the endothelium or entangling the iris tissue. A cannula, again, which is continuously injecting visco, is used to feed the nucleus into the snare. So these bisected or trisected nuclei can be easily extracted through the 6 or sub 6 mm incision, again using a wire vectis and a cannula that is continuously injecting viscoelastic. A quick cortical cleanup and IOL insertion completes the surgery. So with this technique, we can achieve clear cornea on the next day, satisfying speculars at 1 month, and an average SI of just 0.5 diopters even in the hardest of cataracts, as there is absolutely no stretch of the incision. So one of these three techniques using simple instrumentation can be used to manage advanced cataract. The key factor in such surgeries is maintaining a deep anterior chamber, continuous viscoelastic, and maintaining a conscious distance between the endothelium and the nucleus, as most of the maneuvers are happening in the anterior chamber.
Lovely video, Deepthi.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
nice,
you to us.
very nice video.
Very nice. I just wanted to ask you, like, I've seen your videos and plenty of your dads. In SICS, you need to create a little larger rhexis. So how were you able to do your premium IOLs in these cases? Because we would not get that kind of a Rex's wrap around the optic of the IOL. So how do you all get to optimize your results?
So basically, because we use the bimanual technique of prolapse, we really don't require a very big one. So here, as we saw, probably it was 6 or 6.5 if it's, because mature cataracts do have a little smaller nucleus. So I think that has never been an issue. Mostly you'll have to make sure the rexus is central. You have a uniform rim throughout, and that has never been an issue. And we have been doing even trifocal torics with this technique. So rather than the size, I think how we prolapse the technique of using the visco cannula and the dialer, we can easily pull it down to probably a 6 rexus. So only when you do it with a single hand, probably you'd require a larger rexus. So that has not been an issue at all.
Would you use this?
My loop.
Not use it, sir. We have not used it.
Not using it.
Yeah.
But would you use the same technique for all grades of cataract, or would you differ?
No. Yeah, usually if it's a softer one, the cannula is good enough. We use the cystitome and the snare only in harder cataracts. So otherwise, majority of the cases, it's just the cannula, which it can be the 25 or 26 gauge, which is used.
Would you have any tip for the beginners?
Yeah, I think to begin with, when I started, this was the technique I started off because I watched Dr. Ravindra do this. So I think it's only the manipulation of using both your hands in the anterior chamber. So probably in the beginning stages, we can have the entire nucleus come out and practice the wire vectors and dissection outside. So I think basically the coordination of your right hand when you're actually injecting visco and splitting, that may require a little few times of wet lab training, but otherwise it's pretty smooth once you have learned that, and consciously maintain the space between the endothelium and the nucleus. So conscious effort to keep the cannula a little down. So I think splitting outside will be a good way to begin with.
Can I ask a question, Dr. Deepthi?
Yeah, yes.
Dr. Deepthi, the videos were fantastic, and I only wanted to ask you whether you would differentiate between a clear corneal and a scleral incision depending on the grade of cataract and the size of nucleus. Like because when you're doing premium IOS, if you're would you change it, or would you always go with one of the two techniques?
So earlier it used to be close to limbal scleral incision. Now we have switched on to the posterior limbal incision. Certainly not a full clear corneal incision, but just posterior limbal incision without cutting open the conjunctiva. So that has been giving us excellent results as well. So probably to begin with, the scleral would be good, and we can switch over to the posterior limbal from there.
And how do you prepare this snare, Dr. Deepthi?
So I think there is this video probably I can share in the group. I think Dr. Anil Shah's video on the YouTube. So basically it is a 36 gauge stainless steel wire, and there are two needles which are around 20 gauge. So I think probably the video can be shared in the group.
Okay.
So you insert the wire into one needle, you cut off the tip of the needle, insert the wire into one needle, and then put it through another needle and just press the second needle down there so that the wire is in place.
So you are giving a complete to the MyLoop people. They are making MyLoop and they are pricing it so high.
Yeah.
This is very simple, man. Very simple, very easy to use.
They have been using for years, no? Even Dr. Devashi's also made this snare, and a lot of people are using this snare.